Well, I guess people are posting their banlist predictions. Guess it's getting close to that time. Figured I'd go ahead and throw my well, no ring a hat, but I'm throw my metaphorical hat in the ring and talk about what I think is going to get made. Now, this is perfectly normal, not at all weird, not at all suspicious. Banlist prediction. Let's go. All right, let's go ahead and start off with talking about the cards I think should get banned. Now, in a perfect world, a Rise Heart would be, taken out to the shed and sent to live on the farm, as they say. But I don't think that's going to happen. The card's still pretty new, and I think that Konami wants a Rise Heart Pass to still be a viable strategy to play around Nibiru. So, guess we can't have that. Now, one card I do think would be great to be banned is Diablosis. Diablosis is a problem. It is extremely difficult to play around Diablosis. Basically, it forces players to build their decks in such a way that they have two copies of their key cards in the extra deck. And that just limits deck building in a way that I don't think is healthy for the game. I know some people will argue, oh, but it forces people to be creative. It does. Adding a second copy of my most important extra deck card is not creative. Like, I can understand cards that force you to kind of like think about your plays. Like, I would argue Mystic Mind was like that. Like, watching Farfa link his entire board into a Link 4 and then strike himself so that he can out someone else's Mystic Mind, that is funny. Diablosis doesn't enable any sort of gameplay like that. All it does is when you're building your deck, you go, if I lose access to this card, I lose the game. Yeah, let's go ahead and add another copy of that. That's not interesting. That's just annoying. Now, if you're gonna hit cards from Kashtira, I guess it makes sense to hit cards from the other like periphery decks that are kind of good right now. I guess arguably the second best deck right now is Sprite. I could maybe see them banning Sprind. I know it's kind of silly to put like both Sprite Link monsters on the ban list, but I mean, Elf was put on there because it was generic, right? And arguably Sprind is also generic. It's not as generic as Elf, but the fact that it basically represents a +2 in terms of link material is kind of silly. Like, being able to send Angler and then summon two Nimbles from deck is just... it's a little too much, if I'm being honest. And as somebody who has the Sprite deck built and enjoys the gameplay loop of it, I don't think Sprind is a healthy part of the deck. Obviously, if they want to completely slaughter the deck, they would ban Gigantic. I don't think that's going to happen. In spite of the fact that Sprite is like a year or two old at this point, it's seeing a lot of sort of surges in playability in ways that it hadn't in the past. Like, it's being splashed with Runic, it's being splashed with Live Twin, it's being splashed with Tri Brigade. There's so many ways to play the deck, and Gigantic really kind of like brings everything together. And Gigantic locks you. It's one of the few cards that actually forces you to kind of like play on a specific axis of only summoning level, rank, and link 2s. So I think for now it's fine. But in a theoretical future time where Sprite is the only deck left from the current crop of decks that hasn't been absolutely slaughtered on the ban list, I could see them maybe, putting Gigantic in their crosshairs. I guess that brings us to the third, arguably second best deck, depending on who you ask, which would be Naturia Runic. I think that several cards from Naturia are a problem. I think we finally reached the point in time where Nat Beast is a problem in a way that isn't just a very specific rogue deck can make it if it opens perfectly. The Naturia deck is tailor-made to summon the in-archetype synchros. So of course it's going to have an easy time going into Nat Beast. Same with Barkion. I don't think Barkion's a problem. Really, the only thing you make Barkion for is evenly matched, and you can make it in like games against like Labyrinth, but I mean Labyrinth is bad, so who cares? I could maybe see them, going for Nat Beast finally, taking him off to live with your aunt and uncle in Virginia. But I don't know. Nat Beast has been around for so long, and it's so powerful and has been so powerful for so long. I don't know if now is the time for Nat Beast to finally, get kicked to the curb or not. I can't really think of any other things you would ban out of that deck. Most of it's relatively new. Like, I can maybe see them going after Sunflower, but banning Sunflower seems extremely sus. Like, yeah, it's the only card in the main deck, like monster in the main deck, that isn't one of the old cards that I think makes the deck a little bit unfair, but I don't think it's a problem. I think the real problem is Nat Beast. Because, like, if you play against Kashtira and you have Nat Beast, they really desperately need to activate spells in order to climb into the better plays. Same goes with Sprite. If they can't activate starter, then their ability to sort of ladder and climb is extremely hampered. And even against Naturia in the mirror, if you're playing against Naturia runic or some other runic variant, all the runic cards are dead now. So, I really think Nat Beast is a problem, but I don't know if it's enough of a problem for them to ban it. Because as good as Naturia runic is, I don't think it's necessarily an unfair deck. I think it has counterplay. Now, that's really all I can think of to be banned off the top of my head. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. I don't think there's any obvious cards that are a problem that should be taken out of the format. But I'm sure you'll let me know if I missed one in the comments. Let's go ahead and move on to the limited section. So, I guess if your plan is to sort of curb the power level of Kashtira, I think the first card you should go after is definitely Unicorn. Because Unicorn represents a lot of material. You summon it, it searches either Theosis or Birth, and both of those cards just go absolutely crazy. I think both of those cards are candidates to be limited as well, but the fact that they can be searched by Unicorn means limiting them basically does nothing because you just tunnel into searching Unicorn and you just get access to whichever one you're missing. It'd be harder to hard draw them, but I really think that it's the correct call to go after Unicorn because it's just the one that would represent the biggest hit to consistency, in my opinion. In Sprite, I think a very similar thing to go for would be Blue because Blue represents access to Jet, it represents access to Carrot, it represents access to Red. It basically allows you to sculpt your hand in whatever way you want as long as you have access to 2 level 2s on field. If one of those 2s is blue, then you can just go into whatever piece you're missing off of Gigantic. If one of them is not blue, then you could just summon blue off of Gigantic and go off. So I really think that is probably the best card to get limited. A close second is probably Starter because it also represents access to blue and it represents access to just whatever sprite you might be missing at that point. If you're talking about runic cards to limit, the obvious answer is Fountain. I think Fountain being a soft once per turn is extremely problematic. It basically means you can draw like 6 cards on turn 3 or turn 5 if you have access to multiple fountains. I think maybe the next thing to maybe go after would be Hugin, since it also represents access to Fountain. Maybe Tip. I don't know. If you really feel like Runic is a problem and you need to like hamper its consistency, Hugin to 1, Fountain to 1, Tip to 1. There you go. Easy. Now, if you're talking about, branded, which I think is probably next in line in terms of powerful decks, I don't think any of the cards from that deck should be banned. But I do think maybe some of its cards should be limited. The obvious answer would be to limit branded fusion. If you want to kill the deck and make it unplayable, you ban branded fusion. But I think limiting branded fusion means that you now have to play in a world where you can't reliably activate branded fusion more than once over the course of a duel unless you have cards that can recycle it back from the graveyard. So, you know, having only one means that you're probably not going to hard draw it. You have to search it, and it's not as consistent to activate multiple times over the course of a duel. Now, the funny thing to do would be to limit Albaz. Yeah, put Fallen of Albaz to 1. That would be the funny hit. Because a lot of people play 2 because of the fact that you want to be able to sort of play fast and loose with your Albazes. And hard drawing it, especially going second, isn't like the worst thing in the world. You can like normal summon it and try and eat some cards from your opponent's side of the field. Use one of their fusion or links to go into a Mirror Jade without having to activate branded fusion. But I mean, it would just be funny, so I think they should do it. I guess the other cards you could consider hitting are like Branded Opening, Aluber. The problem with hitting cards like that is that, you strike him down and more will, rise up to take his place. Like, there's a bunch of cards you can use to search out Branded Fusion, which is what Aluber does. Aluber is there to do two things. He is there to be a twink and search Branded Fusion. That's what he does. So if you get rid of him, other people are just going to come in to take his place. Like Kit, Springin's Kit, she searches any branded spell. So she basically is the same as Aluber. She just can't be summoned off of opening. And, you could play cards like Keeper of Dragon Magic. He even sees play as a powerful option so that you can make an easy and early Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. Go watch the Revs Cards video if you want to see how that works. In addition to that, you could even play like the Predaplant engine, which has like extremely easy lines to searching Branded Fusion. So, Aluber is extremely expendable. So limiting him does nothing. Limiting Branded Fusion, on the other hand, that might do a little bit more. Now, it's tough to kind of say what else they might want to hit, below those decks. I guess you could talk about, what about the Bestials? What about the Bestials? The Bestials suck right now. The fact that they see absolutely zero play is proof positive that they are extremely format dependent. Like, because of the fact that Kashtira took Tearlaman's place, means that the Bestials just aren't good right now. So, I don't think anything else needs to be hit. I don't think anything else needs to be limited or semi-limited. And if I'm forgetting any obvious ones, you can feel free to roast me in the comments. Let's talk about the stuff I want off the list. Now, Master Duel has proven that a lot of stuff that's currently on the ban list could come off the list and basically nothing about the metagame would change. MBT has been sort of pushing the envelope in terms of what's possible in terms of, letting stuff off the list and seeing decks that people think would be tier 1 meta threats see absolutely no play. I think that True Draco as a deck is bad, both in its power and in its, existence. I hate it. But I think that giving them back Masterpiece would not be the end of the world. The thing that made True Draco go over the top of other decks wasn't necessarily their access to Masterpiece. It was more so the access to draw power. If you don't give them access to, 3 Card of Demise, 3 Into the Void, 3 Upstart, Desires, all that kind of stuff, just a bunch of like broken draw power, they're probably fine. Do I want him to come off the list? No. Do I think he could and nothing would change? Probably. Max C. So Master Duel has proven definitively that Max C should burn in hell. I hate that card. Do not bring it off the list. The fact that it's in Master Duel does not prove that it's okay to be in the format. Master Duel sucks as a result of Max C being legal. There's a reason that the mini game running joke has become a running joke. Like, you either draw Max C and, your opponent has to play under it, or your opponent draws Max C and you have to play under it. And then there's a level beyond that where whoever draws Max C, we now have to see, did the opponent draw an out to it? Going first, your opponent draws Max C. Did you draw cross out? Did you draw Ash? Did you draw called by? Do you have the out? And if you have the out, then, you can go back to playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Like a normal person. If you did not draw the out, then you have 2 options. You can either pass turn or take the Max C challenge. Some decks take the Max C challenge and deck their opponent. Other decks take the Max C challenge and lose. Max C does not facilitate fun gameplay. No, don't bring it back. There's a lot of stuff that's legal in Master Duel that absolutely should not come off the list. Ranga Miniad, yeah, banning Gossip Shadow did not fix Ranga Miniad. He's still a problem. You just killed Gossip Shadow for the sins of Rongo Bongo. Same goes for a bunch of stuff. And the fact is that these cards, a lot of them, like Utopic Zexal and VFD, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're now banned in Master Duel too. Hulk, same thing. And, I personally think Auroradon could come back now that Hulky Fibrax is banned. So, he's probably fine without access to Hulk. Because, Hulk gave you quick access to 001, which gave your Auroradon something to do with those tokens. The fact is that without 001, you can't reliably, repeatably activate 001, which was the entire reason to play that deck in the first place. So, yeah, he can come back easy peasy. You're welcome, all 3 of you Mecha Phantom Beast players. I do think there are a couple cards that could come back that would just be funny. I don't think they should come back, but I want them to come back because I think they'd be funny. That Grass Looks Greener. That'd be funny. Seeing people try to play a 60-card deck with a single copy of That Grass Looks Greener, that would be hilarious. Same goes with like Soul Charge. I think Soul Charge is one of those cards where it's very sacky, but the game has progressed to a point where I think Soul Charge is actually kind of bad in a lot of ways. Like, why would you play a one of unsearchable card and build your strategy around hoping that you draw it when you could just play a good deck? And yeah, the good decks could theoretically take advantage of Soul Charge. But, like, what does Soul Charge offer them that they don't already have? Like, multiple special summons in addition to the normal special summons that they can already do? A lot of decks already do that. And Kashtira banishes. So most of its monsters don't even end up in the graveyard. In addition, I think that Shockmaster is probably fine to come back. Like, what rank 4 deck is good right now? There isn't one. Who's going to play Shockmaster? Freaking Naturia, Runic? Yeah, good luck getting 3 level 4s on the field. And if you get 3 level 4s on the field, there are much better rank 4s to go into. Like, Shockmaster is not going to be winning games in 2023, okay? Like, come on. Come on. Pot of Greed could probably come back too, now that I think about it. I mean, yes, it would see play in every single deck, and yes, drawing it would mean an exceptional advantage over your opponent. But, like, so do a lot of cards. Like, a lot of cards in the game are one-ofs that if you draw them, you just have a higher chance of winning against your opponent. Like, Pot of Greed would not be the only card that fits that bill. And there's a lot of cards that draw too that see absolutely zero play. Like, what was that? What's that one leaf card that, like, if you have a certain amount of life, you draw cards? Like, that sees no play. Like, you can build decks around, gaining that many life points. Like, what? Does that card suddenly make a Romage tier 0? No. Drawing 2 is not the strongest thing you can be doing in Yu-Gi-Oh! The strongest thing you can be doing in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is FTKing your opponent. Speaking of FTKing your opponent, I don't know why cards like Phoenixian Cluster, Amaryllis, and Samsara Lotus are still banned when, a card like Cannon Soldier is still allowed to be in the game. Like, just, if you're going to have them banned, also ban Cannon Soldier. Like, just ban him and all of his friends. Toon Cannon Soldier Mark II, the Priestess of Ohm or whatever, just ban them all. And bring us back the Nixian Cluster Amaryllis. Just do it, cowards. You won't. I know you won't. Also, give us back Victory Dragon, okay? I want to spend 30 minutes in a judge call because my opponent scooped before I could kill them with Victory Dragon. I want it. I want it. And don't forget to subscribe, guys. Subscribe, and these things will definitely happen. They'll definitely ban these cards and take these cards off the ban list. Just hit the subscribe button. Do it. I dare you. And I think maybe ugh, gross.